will be stored in.
1 second. Sorry.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, okay, yeah. Well, okay, so okay, this is what I just moved everything to Excalibur for our reference in future and all that. So last time we actually did the functional requirements, non-functional requirements, and everything, and then we did a estimation also. And this is the diagram what we were discussing on. So we'll have two different services for upload and download, and the reason is because upload will be a time consuming, then the download we don't want to have a bottleneck for download or whenever we are reading photos, correct? So we just separate them, and we have two different storage, one for the image storage, which will be something like an S3, and metadata storage will be which will be holding all the data of our photo locations and users and everything, right? So, and also we'll come back to Siri a little later. So now the data models, we were discussing last time, if we had something of this user table, media table, or photo table, whatever we call it, and we had a user follow, and then we did a rough estimation of data size also. On a high level, we found it to be around 4 TB. So actually we were discussing about data sharding, right, last time. And we were saying, like, if you have something like a
Sorry, Santosh. Last time I remember we had a user ID in the media table. We decided not later.
User ID in the
Media
table.
I just see ID, path, and date. Okay,
Well,
sorry.
we have
Sorry.
that, but
I
only
was looking at the data size. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm adding ID 4+4, so I assume like both of the size for it. Yeah. So then when we were actually discussing about the data sharding, so we said we can do it with two ways, right? The partitioning based on a user ID. So the way we can do partitioning based on a user ID will be keep photos of a same user on the same shard, right? So we can, if we distribute, keep a 1 TB size per shard, so we'll need at least 4 shards. But to keep the better performance and everything, we can use something like a 10 shards, and so we can have a shard ID. We can find a shard ID using user ID modulo 10, correct? So that way we can find a shard ID, right?
Yeah, question here. So when we increase our, do we increase our shards? We might have to, right?
So
but we have kept it to 1 TB, right? Shard number you are telling, or like size of shard?
We decided we're going to use 10 shards, right? If within future we'll ever increase the number of shards?
Sure.
well, see, based on whatever we have right now, we only need 4, correct?
Yeah.
But just keeping 10, but yeah, that can be increased also.
Because
but
this modular function would mean that we will have a, sorry, go ahead.
Not necessarily 10, they could be logical partitions mapped to the 4.
Yeah,
no, but ideally, but ideally, as the data grows, the shards will grow, right? And then the shards will grow. But I feel that not just user ID, the timeline or a timestamp should also be part of the shard key, because we only go and query the latest shard, right? When you're looking for a news feed or anything.
Yeah, actually, see, when we come for the news feed generation, yeah, there might be some challenges. We'll discuss that. Okay, but see, the basic thing when we are looking for data sharding, we just start with user ID. Okay, we know that there are some challenges. So discuss some of the challenges, then move on, and then when we come to news feed generation, we'll see what we can do. Okay.
No, my concern here is just if we are doing this modulo by 10, right? And we are deciding shard ID based on that. So if we'll increase our shards, then we'll have to move, like change where the user ID was at probably 1 before, now it will be at 2. We have to move all the data of this user to a different shard, and there will be too much of movement here.
Well,
right?
okay. See, the thing is, even if you look at it, the calculations what we did earlier about the data size estimations, they are for 10 years.
Okay.
So we are good for this for now. We just need only 4, but we are just keeping it 10 additional buffer of twice, right?
Okay.
So this will be the max, I think, for at least for 10 years. Then after that, we can decide what to do.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
So like going by that, then it said like if you do it this way, user ID will have some challenges, right? So okay, then second thing is how do we generate a photo ID in that case? So the other way would be like to use an auto increment sequence and append our shard ID to each and every photo ID so it becomes unique, right? We need a photo ID to be unique, right? So we have the shard ID, and then we get an auto increment sequence by some means, and then we just append the shard ID to that photo ID, and we store all the photos based on that into that particular shard of a particular user in the same shard, right? So that is the way it will be done. But doing all this, we'll still encounter some issues, and the problems what we'll face is if we have, how do we handle like celebrity users? Okay, the data of celebrity users, because a lot of people would like to follow them and then see their photos. So a particular shard will be hot in some cases, or in the other problem will be if there is unequal distribution of load, because some of the users might have more photos and some won't have. So there will be an unequal distribution of load in that case. And then if if a single shard is not enough, if a user actually using multiple shards, so there will be some latency issues also, because you want to gather data from other shards also in that case. And the fourth problem what they mentioned about was like if we are storing all the photos of user on a shard, and it is that particular shard is slightly serving some other higher load, so there will be some latency issues also in that. So to avoid that, if we can instead of using user ID as a partition, if we move it the other way, like partition based on the photo ID or the media ID, so that will be a slightly better way of doing it. Okay, so then how do we do that?
So,
Yeah. So we can generate something like a unique photo ID first, and then find a shard ID based on the photo ID modulo 10. Okay. So for that, we can actually have something.
in this case, we can even use a UUID.
Okay. Well,
We
I'm not.
generally do not prefer using UUID because that contains characters, numbers, and in that case, indexing becomes difficult. But here we need not index it, right? We just need to see which particular UUID is present in which shard, and we go over there. So I don't think so. We need indexing, and that's why I say, why do we include this timestamp and then auto increment sequence plus the shard number? Like, it will make it complicated. Let's just use a UUID.
Okay. So you're saying you just use a UID and then find the whatever the shard based on it.
Yes.
By doing modulo 10 and okay. So
why
yeah,
is this mod 10? I didn't understand.
Not mod 10, but then some consistent hashing logic.
For 10
yeah, you can use that. Yeah. So right now we are assuming it's 10 shards, right?
So I have a thought. Is it for photo ID? Could we use something like an incremental number to generate ID, photo ID? Like in that case, we will ensure equal distribution among all the shots.
Right. So that is what I was saying. Yeah. So in this case, like you have a do an auto increment ID, something like you use a separate
Okay.
database instance and keeps on incrementing. You have a single table which will have just a field of 64-bit, something like that. And then every time you insert in a row, you'll get that value, and then you use that. So that is one, but then you'll have a single point of failure. In that case, you can have two such database instances doing that, one for even and one for odd, but you will have some more challenges to take care of there also. But it will be slightly okay to use that way also. But yeah, someone said about using UID. That may be also one way of doing it, right? Okay.
But normally, so here I think we are assuming like each shard is being handled by a particular host. Is that the assumption?
Each shard is being handled by a particular host.
Yeah. Is that the, I mean, the mission which is handling the shard request would be only one mission?
That would be for celebrity problem, right? Like, I mean, for each host ID, you'll go to a given shard.
No, you are saying each host in the sense each instance, right? Or each server.
Yeah, each server, yeah.
Now, actually, it can be different servers, right? First, we can do a logical partition of the shards. They can be on the same server also, you know, but as the instance size increases or the logical partition size increases, right? So we can move one shard to a different server. So we can increase the number of servers that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, normally, the servers that is there in the system on the shards should not be matched. Like a server can have multiple shards being handled, and it can be like it can be a leader for a particular shard, but it can be a replica for other shards, right?
Right.
And it can maintain multiple shards within a host, which will be in a consistent hash ring. And whenever there is a need of one server going down, what are all the shards that is being maintained by that server will be redistributed using consistent hashing between the neighboring hosts.
Right.
So,
yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, surely. So that we can handle the other issues of one server going
so
down.
then the key distribution will be minimum because it is the shard will be distributed evenly among using consistent hashing.
Absolutely, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not clear how do we generate photo ID, because when we are talking UID approach, yeah, in fact UID is something similar to MAC plus timestamp. Yeah, when we call UID function, it calls some random pseudo-random number, let's say MAC address of host, yeah, and then just add timestamp to there in order to keep it unique. Yeah, but it's not clear how we do generate photo ID, because to generate photo ID, we need to know shard ID. Yeah, but in order to understand shard ID, we need to find out photo ID.
No. So we are mapping a unique ID with a particular shard. So we hash that photo ID to a particular shard based on the number of shards.
Yeah,
right?
but
photo ID is some 128-bit unique UID format, maybe an MD5 or something. And that ID, we will hash it to some particular shard. It is not like photo ID is generated using the shard ID and all.
So what is your access pattern like? Are we fetching one photo or are we fetching photo for a particular user? All the photos for a particular user.
I would expect particular user, right? That's what.
So for newsfeed generation, we'll have to do that way, right?
Yeah,
we'll have to pick up.
So if you are fetching a series of photo for a given user, then this will be like scatter gather fetch, right? If you're doing hash based.
Right. If it is based on a photo ID, it would be like scatter gather. But I think the number 2 will handle the celebrity issue. That's what
I think scatter gather will be useful in the celebrity problem because it will help us avoid the hot partition problem. But for normal users, I think if the load is not much, we can do range queries and we can.
But then for normal user, we'll already be panning out to the respective.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sure. So, okay, now let's move on to the news feed generation, right? So, okay. So in this, so what will be news feed generation in this case? So like if you want to create a news feed for any given user, we'll have to go and find his user, what he follows, and then pick up all the latest photos for his follows, who the user what he follows, and then we can give it to some ranking algorithm which will just fetch the latest photos from all the followers, and then just return. Maybe we can assume that we will take just 100 such top photos and then return that, right? So something like that. Okay. So first we'll do something like fetch the photos. Okay. Fetch the latest popular photos. Of the users he follows, right? And then we can say assume 100 photos we actually return for every news feed. Return for news feed, okay. And then we get the list first. The first thing what we do is get the list of all the users he follows, and then in this we fetch the 100 photos. Actually, yeah, but this will be only for the active user, right? List of all the active users anytime, and get 100 photos of each of these users. And then the submit to an ranking algorithm. So in this case, we are just assuming only photos, none other than submit to ranking algo. So it will be just based on the time base, right? So whatever is the recent ones, they will return back. But in case other than that, we can use other parameters also about liking and comments and all that stuff. But for this, we'll just keep it very simple. And then we return. But so whenever actually a user requests for a news feed generation, all these three operations will happen. So in this case, if you look at it, we'll be going through different tables, doing some sorting, merging, and all that stuff. So it's going to be better, going to have a hit on the latency, right? So this might not be a really good way of doing it. So every time a user actually requests for a news feed generation, we'll have to do all these operations. So that might be bit not so good. So the better way would be to actually pre-generate all of these in a news feed, right? The news feed. So to do a pre-generation of a news feed, you will have to have some dedicated servers doing all this stuff. Okay, so the dedicated servers will actually keep on pulling all the data from all these tables and for each and every user, and then they will keep on populating this information in some table. Maybe we can call it some table like a user news feed table. And this will be stored for each and every user, each and every active user. So we'll do all those steps and then keep on putting this in the user news feed table. And so whenever there is a request from a user, it will go to this user newsfeed table and then pick up for that particular user whatever the latest data is and return. Okay, so if we do, so now the approach for sending newsfeed will be two ways. One will be using a pull model and the other will be a push model. So if we do pull model, every time he comes back, he will just look here and then return the latest news feed. So, but if you do it on a regular basis, so there might be like you might have some data, okay, or else you might, it might be empty also in most of the time, right? So the only thing is there will be new data will not be shown to the user unless and until he demands for a pull request, correct? So second will be if we do the push way, okay. So we can actually push new data to the user as soon as it is available. And this will be a bit, it will be efficient in doing it, because the client will always maintain something like a long polling request to the server to receive the updates. So whenever there is data available, so that that will be actually sent back to the client. Correct. So the only problem in the push model will be, yeah, the pull model will always have a problem with the latency for sure. But for the push model, it will actually be a problem when like a celebrity user who has many millions of followers, so it will keep on updating it will actually keep on pushing the updates, and that will be done very frequently, right? So we can actually opt for another way of doing it, the hybrid way. So in the hybrid way, we can move all the users who have higher number of follows to a pull model, and rest we can actually do a push data for the users who have a reasonable amount of user what they're following, like 100 or 1000 or something like that. Correct. Or else the approach can be the server updates of the user. We can actually make it a frequency based. So server always update on a certain frequency. It pushes data on frequency, and always for the pool will always be there for users who are actually celebrity users, or the users who have a lot of follows, with a lot of followers, right? So this was something about the news feed. But for the news feed, we'll actually have a dedicated server always pre-generating the news feed. Okay, so this might be one way of doing it. And I think in this they have described something about designing a Facebook news feed also, which is a different topic altogether. And that might be slightly better way of doing it. But for this Instagram, what was discussed in the Groking, it was a slightly this approach. Okay, but as we said, like if we do it this way, so what happens here in this case, the sharding actually is very key in this case, right? So if we do a photo ID sharding, in this case, if we look at it, the most of the things, what we need is we need the recent photos. So photo creation time is very important, right? So if we do the news feed creation for a photo ID based on some time, right? Okay, so if we use something like a epoch time, we instead of using a photo ID the way we were doing earlier, we use a photo ID which will have an epoch time, and also have a auto incrementing. So we actually divide the photo ID into two parts. One will be the epoch time. So whenever we look at all those the timing, we have the
Just a
latest
doubt, like
one,
why
right?
do we take the epoch time? Like what is the difference? I mean, I know that it is some random start time in 1970, but then why do we prefer epoch time compared to current time?
Epoch time, then the current time.
Okay.
No, I'm asking the question. So you are saying why we need an epoch time instead of a current time?
No, I'm asking it in general that everyone says we should always use epoch time for distributed systems because I mean it's something kind of everything is in milliseconds. So wanted to see like if anyone has any clarity, why do we prefer using epoch time compared to we can use like in Java system.current time and in nanoseconds or milliseconds. Even that will give you the time. But then why do we prefer taking epoch time in distributed systems?
I think epoch time is statically computed in the host from the start of the 1971 something, right?
Yeah, for
It
general
is
time.
not dependent on the time of the system or network synchronization of clock synchronization and all, right?
Yeah.
It is just that static computation we get the epoch.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
also
static
the
computation of
resolution
epoch
is not
is like
millisecond, right?
it is something like 1970. So if you use the epoch time, so 1970 milliseconds is say something. So that milliseconds plus the shard number. So the epoch time will be same for all the shards, correct?
Right. It
Maybe
has to be, right?
it will have mission ID also with epoch time.
But then when we know epoch time is a constant for all the machines and it's same, then why are we
But mission
using
ID
it?
will not be, right?
No, I
So
don't
it
think so.
start
It
with
has to be same, no? It
So
is
epoch
independent
is
of automation
independent
time.
of CPU clocks, I think.
Yeah.
But Johan is also.
Yeah, it is like it starts from the 1st Jan 1970, and we always have the number of seconds. I don't think so. It
number of
talks
seconds
about,
till date.
yeah. I don't
Okay,
think
so
so.
then it will be auto
Talks about
increment.
milliseconds, right? I thought it
No, it
only
does talk
talks.
about milliseconds.
Really?
That
The resolution is
every
milliseconds? Okay.
yes, the
Okay.
epoch time, if you look at it, like it's a very big number and it represents the milliseconds till the current second.
Okay.
That has happened since 1970.
Uh-huh.
Epoch time is actually that.
Okay.
But my question
But
was like either we use epoch time or we say system.current milliseconds, right? So how does it even matter? It's the same thing.
But system.current will have a problem if we have different shards on different hosts, right? So it might have some in some of the hosts, if they are giving the time won't be the very accurate. It won't be very in sync, isn't it?
No, but then if you think about it, even the epoch time might be little out of sync. Why? Because every computer has it that it starts from 1st January 1970, but then it will still be utilizing the system clock ticks to measure what is the number of milliseconds that has passed since 1970, isn't it? How does
Okay.
it get to know that 10 seconds has passed since 1970?
Okay.
yeah, and
I
even
mean,
we
if your
can.
application is very time critical, right? Normally there is Google service which is called vector clocks. Normally they use that for this getting the time with the precise times actually.
Right.
The system clocks is a problem, like a known challenge in distributed systems.
Yes,
So-
yes, yeah.
But why
Yeah,
can't
it
we
is.
have a different service actually providing us and we use that centralized service, or maybe something like a server actually giving for all? So we just request the epoch time from there.
Yeah, so whenever we add any other service or any other system, let's say we are adding a network call, right? So we have to handle another kind of failure of that service and how it's gonna work, right? So instead of that, we know what the problems can be in our system based on these clock issues, and then we handle that on our application side.
Okay. So you are saying epoch time using as a service actually won't actually work here, right?
It can work, but then you have to also handle that service going down, right? What are you gonna do then? And if you're gonna still generate system times when that service is down, then now you have a service and now you don't have an application code, or you are doing both. So like it's double work.
Yeah, so we might have to again replicate the service, something like
Then
that.
if you replicate
But I
the
feel
service,
like
that will
news
be a
feeds are
separate
not.
machine.
Sorry.
Yeah, I said if you replicate the service, then it will be a different machine, right? And then again, clock synchronization problem will be there. Like, how do you guarantee that the clock is not missing a tick, or it's not ahead of a tick?
Yeah. So, so in this case, what is the best way to do that?
The best way is the way we were saying that we use the epoch time plus the machine ID. So I just had the doubt, like, why do we always use epoch time and not the system dot current milliseconds? Because I mean, logically, if you think about it, I feel they both are the same time.
So you're
I
saying that
just
if we
wanted to
have
clear
a
this.
machine ID also, it's going to be a unique also, and then we still have the epoch time, right?
No, see, suppose you post a photo at time t, and then at time t plus 10 seconds, you post another photo. So to differentiate between these two posts on the same machine, you use the current timestamp, right? So the timestamp will help you generate the unique IDs. So we use this timestamp, but then we figured out that the timestamp on my system's clock might be out of sync with the clock on another system, right? That's why then the concept of this epoch time came into picture. So everyone started saying, let's use the epoch time, let's use the epoch time. But what epoch time actually says is, epoch time says, like, if the machine says the start of the world was 1st January 1970, and suppose today it is 10th January 1970. So what epoch time says is, it is the number of milliseconds it has passed since the start of this world. So the number of milliseconds basically is the 10 days, correct? Right?
Yeah.
Now, if I have 5 machines, all the 5 machines will say the current time is 10 days in milliseconds. That this is the number of milliseconds which has passed since the start of the world. But then what I'm saying is, still they are using their system's clock to say that 10 days have passed. Correct? When we say the clocks are out of sync, they are out of sync by very minute milli or nanoseconds. Suppose if we look at it a broader picture, suppose out of these 5 machines, 2 machines are out of sync and 1 machine is say 1 day behind. So that 1 machine says it's 9 days are passed since the start of the world, whereas the 4 machines say it's 10 days passed, correct? So how is it different? Like, even the system.current milliseconds will be telling, like, for the wrong machine that 9 days have passed, and the epoch time will also be telling the same.
Right. If your application is too critical about the time, it is, if 2 concurrent requests are exactly matched with the timestamp, then I guess we have to go to an external service which is more precise, as I said, like.
Yeah.
But if it is not that, I think tweets, I feel like the feeds, right? It is not that time ordered. That precise time ordered tweets, unless within a tweet, if there is any retweets and all, it might be time critical, right? We don't need that precise solution. That's what I feel.
Right.
If it is a database, and when we are talking about concurrent writes, and then we have to, let's say the last write wins or something like that, our last update would be doing the update, then it would be okay. For data stores, it might be critical to have the clock synchronized and precise.
Okay. So you're saying in this case it is okay, but I didn't understand why we'll have so much of difference, 9 and 10 days, 1 day difference. Is it like that bad?
Yeah. Then your machine.
No. That was just an example that
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
ideally it is just a milli or a nanosecond. I was just giving an example, right?
Yeah, no problem. So actually, so if it is a milli or nanosecond, what actually this graphing suggests, you use a photo ID with epoch time only to resolution of a second, and then you have an auto incrementer also. Okay, so an auto increment, you can actually do again auto increment for, because if we say something about 32 bits, okay, or 31 bits, out of that 23 bits you use for this epoch time, and the next 9 bits you use for auto increment. So whenever whatever the photos you get, actually you keep on incrementing, so you'll have at least 512 such different versions for that particular epoch time of seconds, and then we can make them very unique. Right, so it actually talks about using epoch time with only for say like 20 out of 31 minus 9 will be whatever that value will be, it will be 9, it will be 22, right? So 22 bits you can use for this epoch time, and then you can use 9 bits for auto increment. Okay, and then you have auto increment for, in this case it will be something like 512 such photos you can have. And also if you look at what the QPS what we were talking about, as per our calculation, it was just 24, so we can easily fit in that. So maximum request will be only 24, but we can have 512 requests in it. So therefore we can have a photo ID with epoch time of resolution of second, something like that. Okay, so this was what they said in the news feed. If you use for creation so that we use a photo ID this way, and then we can shard it based on that, then it might be much better. Okay. And then in the last thing what was discussed in this was about caching. Okay, caching and load balancing. Okay, now caching in the sense, so what it talks about is because it's a very massive photo delivery system and it's going to be distributed across the globe, because you will have users distributed across the globe. So we can use we can actually push most of this content, okay, on different photo cache servers, which will use CDNs. Okay, so that is what the CDN was as per here. Okay, so CDN actually, if we have a content delivery network and we actually push all those instead of all these images very close to the user, so the latency and all those stuff actually will be able to achieve this low latency. And,
one question.
Mhm.
So on content delivery networks,
Mhm.
so whatever is the case,
Mhm.
the images will be stored in files, right? I mean, in the disk, right? Will it be stored in the memory? No, yes, right?
Disk and
Okay.
memory of CDN.
Yeah, because it would be too large if we store images in memory, right? Won't even fit, even if it's a CDN, I guess. No.
Right, but then if you look at it, suppose you are the requesting client and you want to see some photo. So you are requesting it, say, from Gurgaon or Delhi region. So the nearest CDN is in Bombay, but the actual server is in US, correct? So even if, like, the server in US is having that photo in memory compared to the CDN in Bombay having it in its hard disk, it's better to query from
So
Bombay, correct?
so locationally we will put it in that CDN. That's
Yes.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what
Right.
I am trying to make a point is, if image is there, we may not be fitting that image in memory, but it will always be in disk. So when we are downloading more and more, it is always more and more disk reads, right? Will that, I mean, how do we, I mean, even with CDN, whether that would help?
No, even CDN has a memory and the disk concept. So if someone is like accessing the same picture is being accessed by a lot many people, in that case, CDN takes it into its memory.
So it has an internal cache system. But
Yes.
even that cache would be very small, right? It depends on the memory sizes, right? RAM size.
So how much do you suggest, like, will be? I think, I mean,
I'm
according to
saying,
me,
since it's a photo download app, there will be more file IOs. So obviously, whatever cache we maintain, we cannot maintain the same level of storage. The number of images and the number of CDNs memory size would not be the same. I guess then file IO always happens, right?
So file IO always happens, but if you're saying if it goes to the magnetic drives, right? But nowadays we have SSDs also. So some of the hybrid drives, even if they are magnetic drives, you also have SSD as a hybrid. So some part of the caching is done in an SSD, and it's much faster. It's almost like on the RAM. So you can have big SSDs also, but yeah, still they are growing. But you can have parallel such CDN servers also, right? So they can also be replicated, and also CDNs will be small, and they will be more in number. I don't think so. We'll have a single server for whole of India. It will be many places in India also. Even I think they are distributed across the ISPs. So that is what most of you guys do, like for Netflix and all that.
Yes, yes. They're as close to the network as possible, like the edge of the network.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
not a single server. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's all about latency, yeah, because latency from India to USA is about 200 milliseconds, yeah, and even if we use HDD disk, we can read a lot of data during 200 milliseconds, yeah, but if we use SSD, we can even read more, yeah, during these 200 milliseconds, which will network request from India goes to the USA and back, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so CDN, we can actually discuss that later more in some other topic. Yeah, but this was all for Instagram, and also it said about we can cache some of the metadata servers, like on a whatever database rows are hot. Okay, so that we can cache, and we can cache it on a memcache. Okay, and then we can use LRU for cache eviction policies of our system. And one more thing about it talks about caching intelligent, because most of the time 20% of the daily read volumes of photos is generated, it generates actually 80% of the traffic. So if we intelligently cache only those 20% of the daily read volumes of photos of the metadata, so we are actually getting a much better latency in terms of searching and all that stuff.
I think Santosh, caching up can also be used while using the news feed, like while getting the news feed. So what we can do, like if we are like providing kind of 50 or 60 posts in the news feed, so what we can do, like 40 we can store in the cache, and when user wants to see the newest and basically do the pull, then we can recently fetch the 10 new recently post and shows to the user. So caching is also used in that place also. I've read at some place in Instagram that Instagram also handles that thing.
Okay, good to know that. Yeah, thanks. So you can cache the news feed and then just take the latest one. So
Right.
latest one is always in the cache.
Yeah. Because actually we also use the Instagram. So, but we see that when we want to show the news feed, like when we log in into the Instagram, so we like at that moment only we don't see the new recently news feed. We show some like old post that we have seen earlier, and when we like refresh, then we get the new post. So I think in that time, like it fetches first from the cache to show the older post for some extent, and then it is fetch the new recently post. So to increase basically the latency at that time, and like make more responsive.
Yeah, that's good.
So does the push model requires that we keep the connection with the client always?
Well, push model, we can use long polling, no, in push model. So whenever a client can actually keep a give a long polling request, and it will keep the connection open till the data is there, till the server receives some data, and then it either pushes the data or actually it will actually time out.
Okay, it's still a client, but since it will keep on waiting for the value to be available feed to be available, it will be there, but it's actually not a push from the server.
No, actually it will be initiated from the client. Long polling request will be initiated from the client, but the connection will be open till the server responds. Either it responds or actually it just times out. So if it times out again, it will send a long polling request to the server.
But even keeping it open is fine, right? Like I read somewhere WhatsApp is keeping over 3 million connections on each server.
It's only when people are chatting, otherwise it's not secure, right? You cannot keep.
Yeah. I also thinking in that part, because like push actually, what I think that it plays a major role in the kind of messengers kind of application like WhatsApp Messenger and all that. But for the Instagram, I think the pull model is used.
Right, the
Push,
pull
I think
model is
not.
used for Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. For the social sites, like there is a pull,
But
and for Twitter, I am not sure what is their pull or push. I think we
They are
get the
According to
trying to move
DDI,
notification.
to they're trying to move to hybrid, I think. The last
yeah,
or
on
maybe they have
DDI it's
moved.
written.
Yeah.
well, see, when you talk about WhatsApp and then they're keeping the connection open, they might be using WebSockets, right?
Yes.
Or is it
Right,
not?
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a
I
custom
think web
TCP protocol of theirs.
Which
I think
one?
WebSockets will be used only for chats and maybe multiplayer games or something like that only.
Maybe even Discord
WhatsApp
user,
will,
right?
Okay.
I think
Okay.
Uber also uses WebSockets.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay.
Well, actually, in this, the news feed, as per the Groking, it talks about another section where Facebook Messenger, I think. Yeah. So maybe we can, when we go there, we can actually again discuss this because that is much better than what it was discussed over here. The designing Facebook's news feed. So maybe if we take it later, so we might revisit all of this stuff again, but in a much better way.
So,
Because
but when we go down the feed, we always keep on going and visiting the older feed, right? So
Yes.
is
the pagination and all those, right?
Yes. Yes.
right. So that would be a new request, but for going to a older feed, it would be a different query from the server. Is it like a day's feed will be divided into every 10 minutes or 5 minutes, and then we store it in some fashion, then when we are retrieving it, we retrieve it in that paginated fashion? Is that the way it will be? Because when we browse Facebook, we keep on going in one page,
So
sliding
there are
it.
two models. What I have seen at work is that sometimes client cannot hold too much data, right? So we say that, okay, our database is gonna give you 100 records for this query. And the client can say, okay, my screen can only fit 10. So I'm gonna keep the 90 in my cache. And as the user will keep on, scrolling, I'm gonna keep on showing. When it will be on that the last 100th one, there'll be another read which will be for the next records. What I don't know is whether in the background this query is like running for the different range, right? Or the client now sends a new query with a new range. That I'm not sure if someone can answer.
I think there will be a threshold. Suppose you are pulling 20 pictures at a time. So once you are about, you have reached to 12 or 15 photos. So it sees that, you are about to reach the threshold. In that case, it might be sending one more request. I'm not 100% sure, just a wild guess.
But also when it is actually going back, still it will get new feeds again, no? New photos coming up. So that again will change the order, isn't it? So how long you can go back?
Yeah, if I go to Facebook and browse the feed, and then I go again and see the browse the feed, the order is always different, and it will be a different feed altogether.
Yeah.
If I keep on going,
Mhm.
it won't be the same feed that I have visited maybe like 1 hour back
Yeah.
or yesterday.
Facebook is different, and so basically Facebook is optimized for engagement, user engagement. So it's not like an actual timeline as such. They want to attract users, so they customize the feed based upon your preferences. So you may not see the actual the same timeline every time.
So you mean to say for Instagram and other application, it might be possible to just go back?
Instagram, no, Instagram also, I think it's like
Preferences, yeah.
engagement side only.
Yeah.
But if it is Twitter or something, you can see the same feed.
Yeah, it has to, right?
It's like a timeline, yeah.
Okay.
And therefore, for these applications, it will be always different, and we'll keep getting new
Someone is
photos.
mentioning LinkedIn also does the same thing, like it will always keep the same feed, it seems.
LinkedIn also has to, right? Not necessary, no. They can also change, but yeah, maybe. Okay.
Does anybody know that like which NoSQL database Instagram is supporting right now? Because I'm not pretty much sure about that, but I have read somewhere that Instagram was handling all of the data by Postgres database. Like it was not using NoSQL database. So I was just wondering about that. That the obviously the data is very huge in case of Instagram. So how it was handling by just a relational database in that time. So if anybody has any read about something about that, so I would like to know about that.
No, but that day we saw data is not that huge, right? In Postgres, it will be only storing the metadata. The actual storage is
Mhm.
S3, which is used for storing the media files, correct?
Yep. So that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
huge, yeah.
But I don't think an application will be filled with a single data store, right? There will be
Agreed.
different data stores also might be
Right. There
needed.
will be
Partly like
Elasticsearch.
NoSQL is needed and MySQL is also where there
Yeah.
is ad hoc queries that needs to be added.
Yes, so Instagram uses Postgre and Cassandra. So different services would need different.
Right.
Yeah, I know that Facebook uses MySQL for.
Yep.
Facebook uses MySQL and even for Messenger and for other stuff. I will share a link for case of Messenger.
But Facebook uses Neo4j also, no? For their
Yes, graph data.
graph database, right?
Yes.
On the nodes, it stores the data.
Now, my company uses Cassandra for messages. Because it's like append only, and when you have to delete, there is another table that has delete messages. So
Okay. So this was for today, and next we'll start discussing about Dropbox, designing Dropbox.
that will be great.
Tomorrow, right?
Actually, I have some work. I won't start from tomorrow. I'll start from Friday, and then I'll be regular. So this tomorrow